Thank you so much, Summer. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of you. So many friends here in this room. And yes, my dad does always remind me, like, why don't you keep a job? Why do you keep switching jobs? What's going on with you? Ken, you can appreciate that, right? I was worried about where that joke was going. I want you to know that. But, you know, I was like, I think this is a politically correct area. I'm not really sure. But thank you for that. I appreciate the higher learning opportunities. So as I come before you today, I want to certainly acknowledge my board vice chair, Terry Sterling. This is family table. Felix Weil, who is our former Board of Regents member, Mr. Lipsy is here. Our former board chair, my hubby, our comms folks are here. So many friends and family in this room. And you know, as I think about the opportunity to talk about higher education, the power of higher education, the success in this room is the success we're trying to replicate. Think about the opportunities that have been afforded to you because of the networking that you've done, because of the credentials that you've earned, because of the people that you've met along the way. That is how Louisiana prospers, and that is the work that we are focused on doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to come here to an organization that is committed to service above self, because this is important servant work. We have to make sure more people have opportunity in our state than ever before, and so I'm grateful really to have the opportunity to speak with you about that. You know, when you think about higher education today, we're sort of in the news right now. There are lots of conversations about the value of higher education, the return on investment, the affordability question, people who are asking, are we educating or indoctrinating? What is happening with Louisiana students and how do we serve them well? And while there are significant questions being asked and important work being done, I am reminded that students continue to show up. Families continue to try to find a path to affordable education for their students. We do remain an opportunity where we can move people from poverty to prosperity. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to both talk about the issues of the day and the important work that is happening in research, in education, in training to try to move our state forward. We have, as you all know, educated through pandemic, through hurricanes, and so we certainly will continue to educate as we move this work forward. Terry will tell you that during the pandemic or right after the pandemic, we asked an important question. What happens if disruption is the new normal? And so now we are certainly having this conversation as we continue to do our work. Is disruption the new normal, and how do we best serve our students in a world that's ever changing and in a world that is disrupted? And so we're not going to be stepping back with excuses about why we can't do good work. We're going to continue to step forward because Louisiana and our students need us fully committed to making sure that they have great opportunities, and that is the work that we're going to continue to do. The Board of Regents, where I have the opportunity to work, works with all of the systems in the state, certainly the 4 public institution systems and their members, but also Lakeview, which is the private colleges and universities, think Tulane, Centenary, Loyola, etc. We educate over 200,000 students in the state of Louisiana. We need hundreds of thousands more to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to support themselves and their families. We set the strategic plan, the strategic vision for the state of Louisiana. Not a vision for higher education, but a vision for the state of Louisiana. And as Summer mentioned, our goal is to make sure that at least 60% of our population has a credential of value by the year 2030. And so that is work that we are continuing to do, and we know to do it well, we have to address 3 very specific challenges. One, we need more people to finish what they start. So we need more students to be on time, on task, and make sure that they are successfully completing. The power is not in enrolling in education. The power is earning the credential and completing education. So we have to continue to do that work. We have to, number 2, erase challenging gaps, equity gaps. We have one of the lowest African American attainment rates in the nation in Louisiana, so we need to make sure that we address that. We have too few males, particularly white males in rural communities, enrolling in colleges and universities, community colleges, so we have to address that. So wherever the gaps in opportunity exist, whether they're race, gender, geography, socioeconomic status. We have to lean into that. And we have to also make sure that more adults have an opportunity to pursue education than ever before. I know Baton Rouge Community College has some folks here in the room, and other educators are in the room as well. So we do this work not by just thinking about the good work that Ronnie Morris is doing. Where is our Bessie Chair? There he is. We appreciate the good work that Ronnie is doing. And so when I started in education, in higher education, we really thought about this P20 pipeline, right? How well are we graduating high school students and how well are they coming into our institutions? But when we think about talent to be developed in Louisiana, talent looks like this. It looks like first generation students, and it looks like veterans, and it looks like formerly incarcerated individuals and working parents and adults in rural communities. All of the icons and more represent talent to be developed in our great state of Louisiana. And so we have work to do to keep moving that forward. So where are we? In 2 weeks, we're going to share our updated number. We're continuing to trend positive. But last September, we announced that we had our highest educational attainment level in the state at 51%. We started at 44% educational attainment, and we said we want to make sure that at least 85,000 people graduate in Louisiana every year. We are at 73,400 plus, and the news in 2 weeks is going to be even better than that, so stay tuned to that. But credit where credit is due. The Board of Regents doesn't graduate one student. We do policy and advocacy work so that great things can happen on campuses so that students can graduate. So the success that we support and the success that we talk about is the success of faculty and staff and educators on our campuses in small and large communities across the state who are opening their doors to students and saying, there is a place for you here. There is an opportunity for you here. Tell us what you want to be when you grow up. Cyber, nursing, teaching. Tell us what you want to be. We're going to provide that opportunity for you. And so that's the work that we're continuing to do. It has been a zigzaggy path. We've had some hurricanes and we've had a pandemic and other things along the way, but we're continuing to trend positive, and we make sure that we measure every year our success or our challenge so we can make sure that we know where we're headed. Now, as you know, we have been talking a lot about education in the state, trying to make sure that we have better high school numbers, we have better reading numbers, we have better opportunities. But the fact of the matter is, we don't just educate students to educate, which is important. We don't just educate to make sure we have fantastic citizens, which is important. We know that people come to us because they believe a credential is a pathway to employment, to work. And so there's a lot of discussion right now, rightly so, around the education to employment pipeline. I see Representative Freiberg here in education, a great champion for education and a member of the House Education Committee as well. So she asked the question, as many others do, how are we doing with making sure that our students have an opportunity to thrive in Louisiana? How are we doing in sharing opportunities for them in terms of the education to employment pipeline? We do that in partnership. It's not a solo act. So we certainly work with the Workforce Commission. We work with local business and industry. We work with chambers. We work with lots of individuals, a Big Ten approach to try to make sure that we are addressing the workforce shortages in our state, in healthcare, in STEM, in cyber, in teaching, and so many other areas that we have to make sure we have intentional focus on. And we're doing that. But here's the fact of the matter that I need to make sure that we all understand in Louisiana as we try to make sure we expand opportunity. This chart, our circle chart, represents credentials versus demand in 2024. If you look at the chart on the outside circle is the demand mix. And what you see is for every job in Louisiana in 2024 that listed an education requirement, what was the requirement of education for that job? Open jobs in Louisiana. So you see that 18% of the jobs asked for a certificate, 11% associate degree, 24% a bachelor's, 10% a master's, 7% a doctorate, and all around the circle. The inside of the circle represents the credential mix in Louisiana today. The startling number, first of all, is that 49%, almost half of Louisiana's population, has a high school diploma or less in a knowledge economy that requires so much more. So we have work to do to make sure more people have access to opportunity through a credential. But when you look at all of the colors and look at the difference between the outside circle and the inside circle, you see that we're underproducing credentials at every level. Every level for the jobs that existed in 2024. This is not future forward. This is right now an opportunity that we have to address. And so we have to focus on career-connected learning in K-12 and higher education to try to make sure that we are getting there and making sure that our people are having the opportunity to avail themselves of these fantastic economic development announcements that are being made across the state. It's wonderful to have new economic development opportunities. Business leaders are successful leaders in this room, but we want to make sure that the success is not just that the great companies are coming here and great companies are growing here, but that our people have an opportunity to participate in this economy, and they have an opportunity to participate through education and training. Quickly, I'll mention the bookend approach of our work, because we work obviously all the way across the continuum. First of all, high school students. Finally, this past year, 56% of high school students went straight to college. That number had been trending down for the last 3 years. We are now trending up, but 56% is not enough. We need more people to move from high school into college, whether they're going into community college, whether they're going into the military, wherever they're headed. We do know this. The high school diploma is not a credential of value, does not put you on the first rung of employment in a knowledge economy. You need more than that. And so we have to continue to work with Ronnie and their team to push that work forward. And so that's why in 2019, when we set our master plan goal, our boards, Ronnie's board and our board of regents, set a joint goal that by the year 2029, the class of 29, every high school student would graduate with a college credit, a credential, or both. Right now, we're at 74%. So we are continuing to make good strides there, but we have to send the message to people that we need high school graduates, plus you've got to do more than that. And we've got to make sure that we're continuing to move that work forward. One way to do that is to make sure that more kids start college and high school. Dual enrollment. 41,000 students in 2023, 41,000 high school students participated in dual enrollment courses in public colleges and universities in Louisiana. An increase in African American students, an increase in white students as well. We started, when we set this goal, we've had a 55% increase, Ronnie, since we put this goal forward, this joint goal between Regents and Bessie. And so we know that any road will take you there if you don't know where you're going. But when you're clear about what success looks like and you have committed leaders that are doing that work, we can make it happen. And so I'm really excited as I picked up the newspaper to see the GO Charter School moving onto the campus of Baton Rouge Community College to make sure that those students will have the opportunity to avail themselves of dual enrollment when they are doing their high school work. And so that is important work that we continue to do. 41,000 is a good number. Here's the challenge. People think about dual enrollment as an opportunity for high flyers, not an opportunity for everyone. And so 80% of the students participating in dual enrollment did math or English or history or speech. Only 20% did career technical education courses. And so we need to make sure that students who want to be plumbers and welders and HVAC and cybersecurity are also starting in high school to participate in dual enrollment. So that time on task is very important for each and every one of those students. On the other end of the bookend, from the high school, are the adults. And we are so grateful to the legislature that they created an adult financial aid program after Governor Foster, who created the community college system here in Louisiana. $10.5 million, workforce training opportunities for adults. You have to be in high demand, high field credentials that you're pursuing to get the scholarship. 47% of the students were 30 or older. 65% of those who enrolled were making less than $27,000 in their first year when they enrolled in the program. What's happened? Since we've participated, we've had 10,000 students participate, 4,200 students have graduated, and look at the earning increase, more than $36,000. Education pays. We have to move people out of poverty. This is a program that can allow us to do that. Of course, it is out of money. We have such popularity in the program, and so we're going to have to continue to work to make the case for why we need to invest in our people and invest in the affordability of credentials in the state of Louisiana. So that's work that we're continuing to do. Clearly, all of this work is about expanding opportunities. And so I want to mention, before I close, 2 articles that I think really help to make the case for why we do what we do and the importance of education for everyone. The first article was mentioned by the great person who came up here to do the news with a fantastic voice. Baton Rouge named a top 10 U.S. metro for economic development. A college town, a place where we value research, we value learning, lots of people here doing good work. And so we expect Baton Rouge to continue to be top 10 and continue to do the work that's moving them forward. But then last week, an article, this is the haves and have-nots. Life expectancy is lower in Baton Rouge, and they talk about the cause of death. So when we think about the social determinants of health, when we think about what is the real value of an education to yourself and your family, we know that people are healthier, they're wealthier, they're more civically engaged, they pay their taxes, they are doing great work when they have an opportunity to have access to a life-changing credential. And that is the work that we're committed to doing each and every day. We need champions, advocates to make sure that more people have access to credentials than ever before. Champions like each and every one of you who have a lived experience, a story about what a credential has meant to you, to yourself, to your family. And so that is the work that we're continuing to advance. As you all know, we just marked 20 years since Hurricane Katrina, a time when poverty was seen 24/7 on the news. People asked, why didn't people move out of harm's way? Over 100,000 families with no access to a car. People with no access to discretionary income, no means to get out of harm's way. And so it reminds us that the real way to disaster-proof, to recession-proof, to hurricane-proof people is to make sure they have access to education and training so that they can literally weather any storm. This is the work that we have to continue to advance and that we're excited to do each and every day. And I'm grateful for all of the institutions, the leaders who are continuing to do that work, and so many of you who are on advisory boards and committees or donating or supporting our institutions, because great work is happening, but so much more has to be done. When we think about how to move people from poverty to prosperity, that is how we serve and serve well. That is how we make sure that Louisiana prospers, and that is our call to action. Thank you very much. Todd said, stay there and ask for questions and use the microphone. So I'm following instructions. Any questions or comments?
Are we not blessed to have an outstanding commissioner? Commissioner, speak to some of the work that's being done in the public-private partnerships and recognize how the role that everybody in this room can play to help us to advance our agenda around credentials. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much, and thank you for your leadership, Regent Sterling. So obviously we have a Big Ten approach. We are trying to make sure that we have business heavily engaged in the work, and so for every field, basically, we're doing that work together. One way that we're doing that is making sure that, for example, in the healthcare field, we have grants that allow hospital providers to partner with institutions to say, what innovation could we do to produce more nurses, to produce more graduates? So we're trying to make sure we're leaning into innovation and that we're partnering and collaborating together. Also, we are an agency that approves academic programs. And traditionally, one by one, an academic program would come to us, but now we do a 3-year academic plan, and when an institution submits the plan, we send it to the regional economic developer, the state economic developer, and the workforce commission and say, are these credentials that lead to jobs? Is this the credential that you need right now? Are we spot on with the work that we're doing? So we're trying to make sure we're fully integrating the partners in this work to try to move the work forward. Innovation, process improvement, very important. So we do really appreciate the question, Terry. And yes, lots of good work happening, and certainly not doing it as a solo act. Yes.
Thank you. Do these numbers represent transfer students leaving the state and transfer students coming back into the state, obtaining those credentials?
So the numbers that you see are the numbers that are reported to us from the institutions. So they don't represent, so the credentials itself, for example, the 70-some thousand credentials, those are the credentials produced by our institutions. It doesn't reflect whether the student stayed in Louisiana or not. The attainment rate of 51% is a snapshot in time. How many people in Louisiana at that moment had a credential? They could have moved to Louisiana with the credential, or we could have homegrown that talent. And so that is a snapshot of that. But the question of out-migration is an important one. How do we make sure, and this is the space that we're leaning into now, trying to make sure that we have career-connected learning and that we're getting our students in work-based learning opportunities early with industry and business, so hopefully they build that relationship and they remain in Louisiana. Because that is the challenge. The McKinsey report that they just did for LED, the strategic plan, said that of the people who leave Louisiana, 40% have a bachelor's degree. So that is the work we have to do to make sure the opportunity exists here in our state.
Yes, thank you. At what level in high school can a student apply for dual enrollment? What grade level?
We see students that are participating, most of them in 11th and 12th grade. We do see some 10th graders participating, very few 9th graders, but the majority of the students are 11th and 12th grade students.
Hi, what is being done for children with special needs with 504s, IEPs?
So our dual enrollment report does include the students who are in the disability community. We have the numbers for their participation, and we're looking at those to see how we can continue to increase those. But we do want to make sure, to your very important point, that all students have an opportunity to get their credential and to advance. And so that's work that we're continuing to do. I will also mention, since LSU is in the room, BRCC is in the room, we also have a post-secondary inclusive program modeled after Clemson University, don't boo. And it allows students with disabilities to go to college and get life skills and to participate in the way that allows them to be successful. And so we had 2 of our students go to the legislature. Representative Freiberg will remember this. One of them, Matt, is on our council, and he said, I want to share with everyone that I pay my taxes and I have 2 jobs. And as a result of his testimony, we got an additional $1 million to continue to support that program. Yes. Because those parents want to make sure that their kids have life skills and they have an opportunity to go to college too. And so we have, I think, 8 or 9 institutions in the state of Louisiana that are doing that program, and we're very excited about it.
Looking at the social determinants of wealth and are often those zip codes that determine whether you're going to be successful or not. only have the public education available to them. With the development of all the public or the charter schools, and it seems like our public system is eroding, and we really need a strong public education system. What are we doing to address that and making sure that with the social determinants of health that we're really giving these kids an opportunity?
So I don't know if Ronnie I may have to phone a friend on that, but I will say this. When we think about access to education, it's not just the K-12 students, it's the early childhood students, right? The early childhood opportunity. It is Student Parent Month. And so we are certainly focused on that as well. We have a number of colleges that now offer affordable childcare on the college campus. Our goal would certainly be to have universal access to high-quality childcare on every college campus because that's important for our students. So I know that that is happening. Ronnie can certainly jump in to say more about what's happening with choice in education.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to address that. It's a common question, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify some of that. So, at least for me personally, and I think with many of you as well, you know, the really cool part about being a parent is that relationship that you have with your child. And as you build that relationship and you get to know and recognize and identify with, you know, your child's gifts and your child's interests and so forth, well, that next step in today's economy is identifying the schools that are available in your community. And how do you map your child's interest and your child's interests and gifts with the best school, right? Where they're going to identify with all that and make the most of their potential. So specific to your comment, the charter school is a public school, okay? It's just like the traditional public school system, the dollars follow the student. So if your child leaves public school A in the neighborhood and goes across the street to the charter school 2 blocks away, it's still a public school, the dollars follow that child to that school. The whole concept of the charter school was introduced to create competition. Previously, it's a monopoly, right? The public school system has a monopoly, there's no competition. If we look at SEC football, what happens when you introduce competition, right? The bar gets higher and we get better collectively as a conference, right? So same thing here, the concept is that we introduce competition, we introduce variety, specific skill sets, specific opportunities that weren't available before. And with all the technology that's available for us today, that's what makes part of that possible. So just want to clarify there that, you know, the charter schools are public schools. They're our tax dollars, and they service the same way as traditional public school systems do.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Hope that's helpful.
That's very helpful.
Hi,
Hi.
I just got a quick question. If we're talking about life skills and helping kids develop life skills, I grew up and graduated in a time where we had shop and home economics, and I know that I had to teach my child how to balance a checkbook, and I'm still teaching them in their 20s how to do that. So is there any way for we to bring back some of that into our school system? Because I think there are a lot of kids right now are experiencing life and they have no clue what to do, and they're relying on their parents, and it causes them not to have any social skills or any life skills or how to manage or manipulate the world. So I just wonder if that's something that we can maybe consider bringing back, even if it's just a class.
I know there's financial literacy requirement, but I'm going to phone a friend again.
Appreciate the tag team today.
That's why you're here.
And then another great question, and one that gets asked often, is, you know, my kid doesn't know how to balance a checkbook, my kid doesn't know how to mail a letter, you know, some of those type things, right? But fortunately for us, we're Representative Freiberg, wanted to thank her and the legislators in our state a couple of years ago that they changed the requirements. Now there's a high school graduation requirement for a high school literacy class. So every Louisiana high school graduate going forward has to pass the high school literacy class. So that's been recognized, and that's in place today. So I can just make a plug for our internship program
Yep.
too while I'm here. We revamped the entire school accountability system. It goes into effect this year. And one of the incentives that we put in place, well, for me personally, sometimes in my role as BESI president, I work as a substitute teacher, right? So I get an opportunity, one of the things you can do in retirement, if anybody's considering that. But you get an opportunity to really engage with kids, right? It's where the rubber hits the road. And the main feedback I get from kids is, Mr. Morris, can you make education relevant, right? Why am I taking Algebra 1? What in the world am I gonna do with that, right? So how can I make education relevant? So what we do is we introduce this financial literacy class, right? So they can appreciate the value of a dollar. And when I do get a job and I pay taxes, where do those taxes go with some of these concepts, right? But then in addition to that, we've introduced a new concept in the school accountability system now, where school leaders are incentivized to work with business leaders and industry leaders in their community to provide these high school internship opportunities. These are paid opportunities, right? So it's not, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna volunteer and wait until my time runs out. You know, there's an expectation. You're an employer, you're an employee, you've got that relationship. And so now these high school graduates, stop and think about it. Graduate high school, they've had that graduated from they passed the high school literacy class, and they've had some on-the-job experience. And then working with Commissioner Reed and her team in higher ed, got a lot of these dual enrollment opportunities as well, where students can expand their perspective and get that on-campus experience at higher ed, and particularly relationships with the community colleges where they can get experience. You know, they could graduate high school, and I talked to a lot of these nursing students, and 1 year in community college, and they got their LPN. So 1 year of community college, and they're making 50 grand a year. Whereas otherwise, you know, they weren't even aware that opportunity is available to them, much less the kind of income that they're making now, and the service that they're adding, the value they're adding to their community. So we're trying to do everything we can to help these kids get an education that's more than just the books and attendance. It's a practical education where they can appreciate how it's relevant, why it's relevant, and most importantly, how I can fit in and add value. So, hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Got one final question.
One final question, according to Todd.
I wanted to ask if this national hullabaloo over DEI policies has affected your policies in any way, or the way in which the institutions are dealing with disadvantaged students who may need extra help.
Great question. She asked about DEI. So the federal mandates have been that DEI is not to be included specifically in programming. So no DEI officers, no DEI staff, no DEI training. But the conversation, to your point about helping students, is critical, right? So regardless of whatever the students, whatever the gap is for us, we're working to address that, and that is the work we have to do. So I have said to people, don't focus on the words, focus on the work. And the work is about focusing on the people. And that means that anyone who needs additional support to be successful is a priority for us, and we have to try to make sure we get there. So certainly, Linda, there's been a lot of challenging conversations in the environment, but we have head down doing good work because Louisiana needs the best from us, and our students need the best as well.